Welcome to X-Men Evolution, episode 34 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast. I'm Rod, and I'm confused. And that's not like a special to today thing. That's a character trait.
Yeah, that's just a descriptor at this point. And I'm JC. I've mentioned before, but you could catch me on Sunday nights on Whiskey and Waffles on Twitch. I have opened up the last of my MetaZoo card packs now that MetaZoo is resting, hopefully in peace.
RIP.
Yeah, and I was showing Rod before this episode started recording. I'm building one of those like papercraft book nooks that's like laser cut wood, and dear God, it takes a while to complete those things.
It looked great. You had like one train car out of an entire diorama done. It took you a couple hours?
It was like 90 minutes to get half of a train car because it's literally cut in half. So yes,
it looks really cool, but also terrifying because it's very small pieces.
I'm going to buy one for Rod for Christmas just to add to his anxiety. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series. We're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode that we can find. This podcast started with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, building up to the release of X-Men 97, which we now know is coming to Disney Plus less than 1 week from when this episode goes live on our podcast feeds with 2 debut episodes.
We are in the home stretch.
And just a reminder for those of you who are here for X-Men Evolution, there will be a break for the 9 weeks that X-Men 97 is airing. So we're able to recap those, including 2 on its launch week. God bless you for being the editor on this one, Rod, so that we can recap them on their release weeks.
So what's the plan now is to hopefully release on Monday and Tuesday, but we will see what happens with life then.
Yeah, me being in San Francisco really is not helpful at that point.
Yeah, but also like, I don't know. I know what these episodes have been like because we've only had 2 series so far. We're entering like a whole new territory of show and format.
Yeah, we actually don't even know how long these episodes are. Like, Are they 22 minutes? Are they like, who knows at this point?
Yeah, and how heavy will it be? Or like, are we going to get there like, that was a cool action scene, roll credits?
Yeah. I also need to start trying to like see what spoilers I can find, because we do have a few people who want to like pop in as guests on some of these episodes, but we don't want to have to like schedule guests with less than 24 hours notice to still give you time to edit the damn episodes as well. Yeah. So this will all be fun.
It's an adventure. So some quick reminders about this current show. We're a recap show about a series that started over 20 years ago. This is the last time we're going to be able to say that for a while.
For 10 weeks, yeah.
There will be spoilers. If you don't want to spoil it for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. I recommend this run. This season is really good so far. So if for some reason you were like Joe Russo back in the other seasons and you don't watch the show, just
not Marvel's Joe Russo.
Yeah, or it could be someday. We might just be like chronologically out of...
I wonder if he has to like kill the other Joe Russo and take his power, like the one.
Oh yeah, like it's like Highlander, or I guess in the Marvel universe it'd be like Rogue or Carol Danvers, right?
You were there with Highlander and then you just jumped across that shark rod.
Well, I'm just picturing the Joe we know walking up behind the Joe that the Marvel fans know and just like absorbing his filmmaking essence from behind and putting him to a coma. Anyway, we're currently not sponsored or affiliated with Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way, and just based on what I just said, we're not going to get hired to write anything for them.
No, we are definitely not going to get hired to write anything for them. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, and Facebook. And make sure that you are following us on your favorite podcast service and leave a nice comment or, a 5-star rating on there. We usually beg for the ratings at the end of the episode, but I'm going to try it at the beginning and see if that number goes up.
Yeah. Bump it up there, especially now that we're getting to the actual show. Yeah. And also, not to dig on anybody else, I've noticed a lot of other either podcasts or nerd networks and stuff doing their rewatch now, and like we've been doing this for literally 2 years.
Dude, there was one, I want to say it was GameSpot, who were showing you the binge order by day of how to get through between the trailer and the series, and I'm like, I don't think watching 76 episodes in 3 weeks is a great plan, personally. I don't know if I would enjoy that.
Yeah, especially this show, because there's, as listeners, there's been several like eras of just like trauma after trauma and lots of really convoluted kind of like soap opera-ish drama.
And also in the cartoon, there's eras of trauma, not just the two of us.
Yeah, it's a double layer. Now onto the show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 4, titled The Stuff of Villains. It aired October 5th, 2002, and currently sits at a 7.1 star rating on IMDb. I like the symmetry of the titles of episodes. It kind of drives me crazy that they're spread apart.
Oh, yeah, because it was also, you did Stuff of Heroes, and then there was a week in between, and then it became Stuff of Villains.
Yep, it makes sense narratively. It's purely for like if these were like DVDs or something, like the spine orders or whatever. This is the Homer Simpson head of the DVD set. Remember that?
Well, because it was Day of Reckoning, Day of Recovery, Stuff of Heroes, Mainstream, and then Stuff of Villains.
Yeah. It was like, what's that sketch on SNL where Kristen Wiig's always the weird sister? And I'm Eunice.
Just going to leave that awkward silence there for you, Rod.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is one of the episodes that has it previously on, not because it tied directly to the last episode, but it very much looked like they wanted to remind you of like Magneto's storyline.
And the Wanda stuff, especially, yeah.
And his connection to Wanda, and that he had survived and Pietro was the one that got him out of there.
Also, it was Xavier's voice this time who did the previously on, not Scott's voice.
So they're just like rotating through the cast at this point, I'm guessing. Either that or it's like whoever had an extra hour in the recording session that week, they were like, can you do this recap? And once again, they went straight from the recap and segued right into the cold open, like no warning or anything. So in this show, if you haven't already known, don't skip the previously ons, because it probably is going to be new material immediately after. It opens up with the neon sign of like a really seedy hotel, and then pans down to these guys on a stoop in the middle of the night catcalling Wanda, who's walking down the alley.
Okay, so gotta point this out. They specifically chose to give one of those guys a Hitler mustache, right?
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
That was a conscious design choice.
It had to be. It was. You don't casually throw that in there unless it's Charlie Chaplin.
That guy did not look like Charlie.
No. And even the other guy, it wasn't as thin, but he also had a very like narrow mustache. It wasn't quite a Hitler stash, but
dude, the one who was specifically catcalling and telling Wanda like you got to pay the toll, which obviously they're saying money, but like we know what that's insinuating as adults and stuff
also,
like that.
Extra gross. Wanda's a teenager.
Yes.
So, and these were clearly very adult men, I think, at least in the way they were animated.
Oh no, they were definitely animated to be adults, no doubt.
Yeah. And so, rightfully so, she like distorts reality around her, like makes the lamppost turn to like a snake, essentially. The car is kind of turned into like monster trucks almost, and chased after the guys. And like this is like one of the few times where like Wanda is fully justified in everything she did.
She probably should have killed them so they can't do this to other people.
Yeah, and she dips off into an alley. Another cat reference. We don't see him this time. I know it's like a trope when you go to an alley, you hear a cat, but this show specifically always makes sure there's like a cat reference in the alleys.
Well, that cat has been named. I think we talked about it was like O'Malley or some shit like that. Yeah, like the cat was used enough times in the show that they gave it a name.
That's great. And I guess she knows Caliban?
Yeah, I was interested in that because like she wasn't with the New Mutants when they were out hiding with Caliban. So how does she know about him? And I'm assuming it has something to do with her father.
Or maybe down the road we'll see some sort of like, is that part of how she got captured, or was she aligned with him before she got captured? I don't know.
Right. Also, but she also specifically knows what he can do.
Yeah. And does it also paint a picture that Caliban is like this neutral, like neither good nor evil in this series? Like he doesn't have sides. He's just like, you're here doing no harm to me, so whatever you want.
I've always gotten that vibe for Caliban as a character. It's only when he gets like that secondary mutation where he like hulks out and stuff like that. That's the only time he ever feels like he's evil. Whereas on the other side, he's just kind of like, he's a tracker. He's there. He's like,
yeah,
do what I got to do.
And in this, so this was interesting because what she wants him to do is what we all assume she wants him to do, is to find Magneto. I'm guessing they're going to expand on this later, but Caliban's kind of mysterious about it and saying that he can't do it.
He starts by saying he won't. That's the start. He starts by saying he won't, and then she surrounds him with the trash bins, and that's where it goes to, I can't. He's too far advanced.
So I guess that has to do partially with that end of first season thing.
It kind of makes sense because the same thing happened with Mystique, where certain aspects of her, like she can't be detected by telepathy anymore.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Or, I mean, this could be going a step too far. Does it mean that he's not technically a mutant anymore because his whole power is to be a organic version of Cerebro, basically?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, is he beyond a mutant at this point?
Yeah, I don't know, but that was interesting and ominous in this, because if this was in any other show, I would just have chalked it up to like a really like bad writing or lazy writing or whatever, but this seemed very purposeful.
This show doesn't have lazy writing. I feel like there are certain times where inspirational speeches may not hit the same, like kind of like some of the Xavier stuff, but I don't ever interpret it as lazy.
Yeah, especially because now, if you listen to the last episode, the little like small detail of Mystique turning around at the psychiatric ward when Wanda is like, that wasn't like a small detail, or it was like, well,
that was planted.
Yeah, it was like a purposeful thing that we were supposed to look back on, and it connected, not like a visual decision or something. So yeah, I don't know,
like it wasn't a retcon because we saw the turnaround happen.
Yeah. And so he says he can't find Magneto, and he's like, if it was anybody else, and she was like, oh, okay, well, I'm my brother.
Yeah.
And we just assumed that he said yes because it just it fades off in that ominous like.
Well, because he was very nice about it. He's like, I could do it for anybody else. Who do you want, basically?
And then he's like, oh, him? Yeah.
No problem.
He's like, I've already been tracking him. Here's the address.
She's like, why were you tracking my brother this far in advance?
Like, he's always up to something. I know where all of you are.
That little rascal.
Right. He kind of is. Like, he'd be... Pietro in this universe especially is probably one of those people that was like, you know what? We should keep tabs on him. He's kind of like a loose cannon. And we don't know what's going to happen next.
He's kind of like the kid who plays McLovin in Kick-Ass, where it's just kind of like he's always just kind of being a pain. It's like, I don't trust him. I wish this was the universe of like the boys are invincible, because they would just kill him.
Right. Or he would like run into a wall or something and not be super strong. That's my thing.
That would be the best part, is if he doesn't have like the cannonball power that protects him when he's in motion, and he just trips into a wall and just splatters all over the place.
That's the thing that I want to see in one of these realistic, like, kind of superhero parodies. Like they haven't done this in The Boys, but I haven't seen Gen V to know if they do this there. But like, assuming that the speedsters have like super strength essentially, or like not super strength, like invincibility. It's kind of like a given. But what if like you did get speedster powers, but you didn't have like invincible skin, and
you accidentally run past a clothesline?
Yeah, or just lose your face because of wind.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're running that fast, that'd be like a great, your power manifest. Let's see how fast I can go. And then they just like lose their flesh from running so hard. Anyway, we're wishing a lot of bad things on Pietro.
Yeah, you are. Why do you hate Pietro so much?
Everyone hates him right now, right?
That's true. He has no friends right now.
Then that goes to the opening credits, because that was supposed to be our suspenseful thing. It's funny. It's supposed to be suspenseful. We know exactly what happened. Of course, Caliban found Pietro.
I think it's a little more of the ominous thing.
Yeah.
Like Wanda's going to get her wish rather than suspense, but I know what you're saying.
When it comes back from the opening credits, we're back at the mansion. They're still rebuilding, and that gazebo elevator happens, and it's just so funny looking, I think, is why I like it. And it's also too obvious. It's barely hidden, right?
It's barely hidden, but how many times are people gonna be walking by and seeing it come up from the top? It's not like they're using that when like they're doing like an open house,
Yeah. And it's just something that it's already 75% on the way to looking like an elevator. It's just great. I love it. It's very convenient. So in their conversation, Evan and Kurt are talking. Evan calls out Kurt for still staying hidden even through all this shit that's been happening.
Well, because Evan is ready to like drop out. He doesn't want to put up with it anymore. And because he's saying that all his friends have left him. None of the skater kids who he was cutting class with are still around. And then Kurt's like, no, I'm sure you still have friends. And that's when he's like, oh yeah, easy to say when you still get your image inducer on, bro.
Yeah. And he like grabs his wrist, and Nightcrawler teleports away. And then Evan calls out for him. I wasn't sure if like that was...
I think he felt bad. I think he's like, maybe I overstepped a little bit, because even though I do have powers, I could pass for people who don't know kind of scenario.
Yeah.
So I think he felt bad about it.
And then it like kind of pans past Evan to the ceiling, or what's left of the roof of the mansion, and Sunspot is like recharging from the sun.
One of only 2 episodes in the entire series where he has lines.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, and it's
one of 3, but this is the last one where he speaks.
Oh, really? So, okay. And it's not even for like a superhero thing. We quickly find out, because at first I thought, they're training and they're going to make the best of the danger room. They're literally just cleaning up the mansion. And
it was a very convoluted way to melt down parts of like the danger room and stuff to turn stuff into blocks. It was like 5 mutant powers combined to create blocks.
Yeah, and it's kind of semi-redundant, right? So Beast and Storm were leading it, although Storm wasn't doing a ton. It was mostly Beast, and so Sunspot initiates everything, and then who else was there? The
Magma was there. Sunspot was there.
It ended with Magma melting.
Yeah. It felt like it got melted twice.
Yeah, so it just kind of came back around.
Oh, and then other people were just like brushing it with like brooms and stuff.
Maybe that's why I didn't remember, because it was just like a bunch of like kids.
Right.
These
kids
around.
Cleaning. Yeah.
Beast grabs like that metal cube and then like runs it out to wherever they're dumping those cubes are.
The cube pile.
Oh, that's who else was there. Multiple was there sweeping, so that was like part of it.
So finally, Jamie was useful.
Well, maybe. We assume. We don't know if he was sweeping correctly.
No, but that's why there's so many of him, because he makes up for his inefficiency with quantity.
But I wonder if they were all sweeping in different directions, that's not efficient. You know? Because I think they're all facing different directions. So.
Why do you hate Jamie so much, Rod?
I just think it's funny because he's like so young to be in this like
he's like
situation.
9 at best. Yeah.
And he's literally like in this military situation. Like even the Power Rangers were older.
And his parents don't care. They did not come to pick him up.
They were like, let him stay. We only have a 3-bedroom.
Yeah, they're like, when he wakes up in the middle of the night and there's 7 of him, we can't deal with it anymore.
Yeah. And then as Beast is walking through I guess one of the sub basements with that giant metal cube, because I guess they're not dumping it outside somewhere. He's taking it somewhere lower or more within.
It's construction material.
Yeah, right. Scott runs by and he was like, anybody that wants to ride with me, like I'm going now. And then like Jean runs by and she's still like messing with her hair. And then this was like straight out of a horror movie. Kitty's running through the hall, still brushing her teeth, which relatable. But then she like phases through Beast and she looks and she's like, "Where's my toothbrush?" And she looks back, and I kind of expected to be a funny Beast has it in his mouth kind of thing. Like that's gross, that's funny, but like
it was inside his chest.
She reaches in his chest. And I was like, wouldn't he would have gone to cardiac arrest, even if it just displaced. There's a lot of important things in there.
I guess the only thing is if like you have to assume because of his build, he's very muscly, and maybe it was in a muscle spot, which still is going to be painful and awful after the fact.
Well, we know it was at least partially in his digestive system because he burps up the bubbles from the toothpaste.
Oh yeah, then yeah, he should die. He should be dead.
Even with cartoon
the
logic,
only one that doesn't kill is Logan. Everybody else that should murder them.
But even with cartoon logic, that was just so unsettling to me because like it wasn't like Looney Tunes so far removed that it was.
But then it was Looney Tunes with the burp.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I was like, oh, this is body horror followed by Looney Tunes in like a 3-second time frame.
Yeah. And then they switched views to the outside of the mansion where the construction trucks are driving in past the gate. And I feel like this was an ominous, purposeful zoom in. They zoomed in on the sign that said, like, with confidential construction company, like, we keep your secret safe. I'm like, that.
There's something that is going to pop up from there. Okay, I'm just going to look this up really quick and see if there's something that I missed. There was nothing in any of the notes on any of the wikis, but let's see what happens. And I'm going to get myself on some sort of government list.
Right. It's like, what was it? There was something recently, like a national kind of, not emergency, but an alert with like national security, and whatever the press release was kept reiterating that things are fine. And this TikTok creator that I saw was reading it, and they're like, I feel like the more times they say things are fine, I feel less fine about the situation.
So Love, I definitely have gotten on a list. There is a company called Confidential Construction Company. They have job listings on talent.com, ZipRecruiter, and Indeed. There's also a LinkedIn for Confidential Construction, and then Construction Confidential on Facebook.
That's funny. Indeed is funny now because that's where that failed Willy Wonka thing in Glasgow, Scotland, it from.
Oh, wow.
They said the listings for those, the actors found the listings on Indeed.
Okay.
But what's funny is, even if it ends up being something nefarious, this also answers something else that we've been making fun of for both shows for the whole time. It's like, who constructs stuff at this place?
That people didn't get sold out from it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there is specifically like a clandestine construction company in this universe.
We keep our mouth shut. Yeah.
Yeah, so we should start that. Like, we keep our mouth shut LLC, and it's just like with a blind item account. We just
I really don't want to commit fraud, Rod.
Well, no, that's how like the American legal system works, right? You would name your company that, but it's not a promise. It's just like a name or something.
It's just a suggestion.
Or I just watched a video. This is what YouTube is for me. Is like it should be like light enough that I can watch for lunch. This guy, I forget what he's called, Sam Reed. I can't remember. He tested all the different pizza places, pizza trackers by being in a stakeout van while he ordered the pizza to see if they were being truthful about the stages. When he got to Papa John's, he was like, "This is not at all accurate." Well, he's like, they were early, but the stages weren't accurate. And then he's like, he looked at the fine print. So Domino's actually has a patent that's several pages long about how it works. It has like algorithms and stuff. Papa John's just has an asterisk and a footnote that says this meter is purely for entertainment, just to watch, just like a slideshow that's on a timer or something.
No comment.
Yeah. So even though it says pizza tracker, that doesn't mean we track pizza. That's on you if you assume that.
It's like the Santa tracker from NORAD, basically, is what you're telling me.
That feels more honest.
I mean, you're perpetuating one of the biggest lies possible, so I don't know if that's exactly more honest, but...
Wait till you believe in Santa, and then, I don't know, however it happens in those movies.
I watched some of the TV version of the Santa Claus, and Jesus Christ, this is why we watch X-Men.
That is... I liked the Santa Claus movies growing up. That show is rough.
It was awful. It was truly awful.
It comes pretty close, if not achieves ruining the original movies. And I even watched the second season this last year.
Why do you hate yourself?
Well, I was already dying anyway, so I figured what could get worse. Like, I couldn't see, taste, or hear, or I could hear. I couldn't see, taste, or smell. So that was a good time to watch that series. Anyway, so yeah, only mention of this construction company
for the entire episode.
Yeah, but they made sure to zoom in on it and linger on it long enough for you to read the company name and that tagline. So that's something. Then they cut over to the Brotherhood house. Toad has Pietro's uniform, like his Quicksilver uniform on. And
yes,
it's
he
like
does.
Baggy. This was actually kind of funny because he was like, "Oh, like this, look at me." And I like one of the jokes. Well, everybody's just like sick of it. They're like, "We don't want to see him or think about him or his uniform." But we figure out through the context of their conversation that they're cleaning the house because they're worried about Mystique coming back. Like that's how afraid of her they are. Is like they don't even want to be a mess. Because of what happened last time?
Yeah, because of what happened last time. Like, they've seen where this has gone badly.
Yeah, and so, and then Toad brings up a good point. He's like, why are we even cleaning his room? And so then Lance is like, okay, well, we'll do it the fast way, which was a worse way. He, like, quakes, but somehow only, like, that. I guess he's able to, like, concentrate it to that floor, so all the furniture
with blob gets thrown out the window.
Out the window, so now there's a hole in the side of the house, which I feel like is probably worse than a dirty room.
Because there's a hole from where her bedroom was from when Boom Boom blew that up.
Right.
And these guys do not know how to fix windows.
And this was more than a window. This was like the whole wall blew out.
And just remember, this is after the government agents have already, like, gone into this building and, like, when they raid something, they're busting holes in walls and...
Yeah.
This poor house, man.
So, we're going to find out the house is a mutant because it shouldn't be structurally sound anymore. Everything that's happened.
Is there a house that's a mutant?
The retcon for this show.
No, but there is in Moon Knight the mission, because he puts together the Midnight Mission as like the location. That is actually a possessed like demon scenario. So
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like a less cool ego or something. I guess that's not a mutant either, but
Krakoa is a plant that turns into an island.
Oh, I didn't know that because that's
it's the island that's the mutant itself. So
that's the current series, right? The Krakoa stuff. Yeah, I haven't kept up with any of that. The only thing I know about that is when Storm and Rogue or Jean are singing "Unbreak My Heart" by Tony Braxton. That little clip they went through. But in that blast, Toad like stumbles out of the room and like trips because Pietro's uniform is like longer, like because he's taller than Toad, and he like tumbles down the hallway and busts down Wanda's door. And he
has the worst line of the episode. He goes, "Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that this time." So he has literally stumbled into her room twice.
I mean, I guess he doesn't have good examples of boundaries from Boom Boom, so he's not assuming it for everybody else either.
That's true. Boom Boom did go into the bathroom when he was like pooping and showering.
Yeah, and exploded him and the bathroom.
Yeah,
and I guess they thought she was in there, because he said that, but they're like, "Oh, she's gone. Where could she be?" And it's like, I guess, she's the goth girl, so she's going to be not making a whole lot of noise. I don't know.
Yeah, and then the scene ends when Lance basically like rips the costume off of him, assuming he has clothes on underneath it, and he's like, "God, put something else on."
Yeah.
The whole house has seen Toad nude at this point. It's disgusting.
I thought it was a smell thing. That makes so much more sense. Okay, that's funny. Back out, we see like a road in the woods-ish somewhere. Wanda gets out
I put
of the bus.
bus in the forest.
Honestly, the way it was set up, I was like, this is 75% chance it's going to be Logan, because this is the kind of place he just takes a bus to. I guess the only...
Or a
thing is,
motorcycle,
like,
too.
He wasn't riding his motorcycle, so
Yeah.
that's the 25% that was unlikely.
Although Colossus did fuck it up in the last episode, so
There you
he
go.
might not have a new motorcycle yet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that actually makes sense for the last episode, why it took Logan so long to get back to the mansion. Because he had to walk back because Colossus blew up his motorcycle.
Or take a bus.
We're not going to add that in last week's episode.
Yeah.
You have to follow the thread of this dumbass show. And by dumbass show, I mean our show, not Evolution.
I mean, we both have our moments, right? And Wanda gets out of the bus. She walks up to Meg's Diner, which is like what you think of like the All-American diners, like a renovated Airstream kind of thing. Is that right? Airstream is like a really
shiny diner.
Yeah. And she finds Pietro right away. He's like sitting in a window, so he's just not very good at the hiding thing. Yeah. And he's reading a newspaper. She walks in, and to her, credit, she gives everyone fair warning. She's like, "Get the fuck out!" And then like confronts Pietro, and
I love how he tries to run away, and she literally stops his feet. Like he literally can't run.
She like tethers his feet.
She is that powerful that she's like, no.
Yeah, she tethers his feet to the floor. And she doesn't believe him, but he tries to tell her, like, I don't know where he is. He comes to me, which that tracks because Magneto's like old and wise enough to know that, like, to not do the obvious steps. Like, he's already thought about Pietro being, trackable and all this stuff. And he sends all the acolytes out to do all this stuff. So he finally gets through to her that he doesn't know where Magneto is. And so she's like, fine, I'll just make him come to me. So she throws Pietro into like a locker and then throws the locker into the freezer.
And then she just tosses the freezer out the front door into the middle of the street.
Yeah. And I'm able to like write like on my notes what's going to happen, like that split second before it happens. So I'm not behind in typing. I actually had to pause my typing because I'm like, is she going to take him or is she leaving him for the cops that are showing up?
I also thought there was a possibility that she was going to have it so the freezer would be like door down. Yeah. So you would need somebody with magnetic powers to be able to like push it over on its side to open up so he didn't like suffocate to death.
That would be smart. See, they should have hired you as a writer.
No. Also, I was like 19 when this came out. I would not have been ready to write this at that point of my life.
So they do imply that the cops are who gets him because they pull out handcuffs, which I don't know what good that would have done for this person.
I assume he was disoriented, honestly, because like she's like tossing him around. He's probably like getting his bell rung as that thing is flashing around. Like we do know he's not the most durable. He's very fast, but he hasn't like shown he's a great fighter or like that he could even really like take a punch. Like when he gets tripped up quick and bad. So
that's kind of not the end, but like the closing of this part of his storyline. She found him. Now he's bait. So then we go over to the high school. Principal Kelly is signing papers to expel the Brotherhood kids.
But only Lance is there.
Yeah, because he's the leader of these guys. And for now, this leadership in the Brotherhood just keeps rotating, depending on who's like been kidnapped that week or not.
Right.
And so Lance is like, but you're the one that recruited us. And Principal
Kelly's like, you told us to come here. And he's like, yes. And then he stops his sentence. Yeah. He's like this close to confirming his plan. And Lance is so dumb. It's like Kelly says yes, and it takes Lance 4 more sentences to figure it out. But then he never still like gets the confirmation of it.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, it's like you just wanted us here to fuck with the X-Men. And then Lance basically has telekinetic powers at this point. Between the throwing the furniture out of the room, and then right now, like, he quakes just the desk to pin Principal Kelly to the wall, just to like kind of fuck with him. And then he just leaves. Outside, Gambit is waiting for him.
I literally write it as douchebag Gambit because of the visual of the haircut plus the goatee. I do not like this design for Gambit. I can't get into it.
Also hanging outside of a public school during school hours.
Which they have not given us the impression that he is not an adult. Like maybe he's not 30. Dude is definitely not a teenager though. Maybe 18, 19 at the absolute youngest, but he is too young to be at that school.
Yeah. Or too old.
Oh, sorry. Yes, he's definitely too old to be at that school.
And
Multiple is too young to be at that school.
Yeah. And so he wants to talk to Lance, like not to fight or anything, but he said he wants Lance to get the Brotherhood guys together at their house so that he can go there, the Gambit can go there and talk to him. And Lance is like, No, like why? Like I kicked your ass. You know, I don't even know how long ago that battle was. It could have been overnight or it could have been like a couple weeks ago. We're not quite sure.
5 days or so.
Yeah, there's like mixed details that lead me one way or the other depending on which. It's like they're living at the mansion again, but it's Xavier gave the kids 2 hours notice before going back to school. Like,
yeah, I think this is all like a week and a half like time frame. Honestly,
right. I guess that makes sense. Like the school's closed or something. I don't know. And then we catch up with Rogue, who's sitting on a bench outside. I'm assuming this is all kind of like in a generally similar area, like not in earshot of each other, but they're all outside.
Yeah, it's like kind of like the quad scenario.
Yeah, and she overhears some kind of faceless girls walking by talking about Rogue being like one of them.
So, we got reference. According to the wiki, the girls' names are Patty Simcox, which probably doesn't mean as much to you, and Sandy D.
I don't know.
Like the two friends from Greece.
Oh, okay. The more the references.
Yeah, so those are character names inspired by like a pop culture thing that they just funny. Inserted, and because you never call the character out by name, like sure it could show up in the script that way, but yeah.
Oh, speaking of references, back in the what episode was it with the music video with the girls?
Walk on the Wild Side.
Someone had mentioned, or you had mentioned, like that there was Empire Records reference.
Yes.
So I don't know how either.
That was the dancing around with the hands up in the air spot.
Yeah, I don't know how either. I watched it when I was a kid and forgot it, but I didn't remember anything. A couple weeks ago, over the weekend, I watched Empire Records because that just straight up sounds like a movie that I would like because I love high fidelity and. Yeah, any of the movies that take place in a record store.
I'm actually shocked to hear that you have not watched it on a regular basis.
Right now, I will. So yeah, I watched it and I loved it. I actually posted after watching it that it was a little bittersweet watching it because no one will ever love music like that anymore, and that I don't feel like that's even hyperbolic because I know individual people will, but there's not a case where like someone's gonna hire a bunch of kids for a clearly unprofitable record store to just like all hang out. And even though that sounds like a movie thing, I knew record stores like that. I don't know if they were like fronts for drug rings or something. But anyway, I watched it and then I was like, I was like, that's the scene that they were referencing because there's that scene where they're opening up the record store and it's straight up and it's funny that it happened in reverse. I recognize the dancing from Evolution and then you see Renee Zellweger and Liv Tyler, like dancing around the record store. I was like, okay, this is funny. I'm getting more references like after the fact.
We still have yet to find the reference to She's All That, which is on one of the wikis, and nobody has corrected that one yet. So again, I'm not going to go rewatch She's All That, because that would be the easy solution.
Yeah.
But I don't want to rewatch She's All That. That's the hard part.
I feel like I am being pointed by the universe to watch that movie, because I definitely did not watch that movie when it came out.
First date I ever went on was took a girl to that movie.
Even though I have personally visually parodied that movie cover, I haven't watched the movie. But
fucking scumbag, Rob.
Sixpence None the Richer like really liked one of my videos I did about them and like reposted it and thanked me for talking about it. So I was like, all the signs are pointing. There might be an X-Men Evolution reference. Sixpence. I think most people know They Did Kiss Me. That was that iconic steer scene. Maybe I should watch this.
You say most people know that, but here's the problem, dude. We are now at the era where like references to Nintendo 64 stuff. Some people are like, I wasn't alive when that came out. And it's like, oh, I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah.
Mario Kart came out in 96 and Generation Z started in 97. And it's like, oh, God. Just going to throw myself under a truck.
Yeah. So anyway, Rogue
hears the girls from Greece talking shit.
Yeah. And
that was a fucking tangent, by the way.
Yeah. She doesn't get to acknowledge them before noticing Evan getting mugged on school property
by MAGA bully.
yeah. I think that was the same bully as before, right?
Yes. Like Drew, Bally, Callie, Dally. I don't know. His first name was Drew, though.
And
we found the spot in the script where I can't read my own writing.
And they're trying to get him to spike out. I guess they had done enough or seen enough things that they knew that's something he could do.
Well, and they're basically like doing the whole like, we're going to get you to use your powers and we're going to get you kicked out. Like that is a constant threat that these kids have to deal with is, yes, they're allowed in the school, but apparently if they do show their power, it's going to be used against them.
Yeah. Oh, and that's really timely too, because that was in that era of like the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, right? Or shortly thereafter, at the very least.
It would have been, 90s. I think it was after, I want to say it was 90s, like Clinton administration.
Yeah, so like kind of a little bit within like memory or.
Oh, it was absolutely within recent memory. I don't remember when it got repealed.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so they were like egging him on to try to get him to spike out. Also, very dangerous. It's very similar to like Scott and Duncan. It's like, do you want him to blast your head off? These kids are like, they're not like poking him with a stick from a distance. They're like on him and trying to get him to spike out. Do you want to be impaled? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, like throw the dude in a bear hug and see how this goes for you.
Yeah. And so like I was kind of cheering Evan. I was like, do it. They can't tell on you if they're dead.
Yeah, and Evan's kind of like, fuck it, I don't care. He spikes out, and then he literally can't retract.
That was interesting because I don't think we've seen that before, right? Where he's unable to control the retraction part.
No, we've seen that Evan has different levels of like how big the spikes are and what it does. I want to say in like season 1, there was a time where his stuff looked like armor almost that it was popping out. When he was possessed by Mesmero, it was like he was bigger. So I don't know if it's maybe like his lack of confidence usually is like why he's holding back. But this time when he's like, I don't care anymore, that's when he becomes more dangerous.
Yeah. And then Rogue does like the Black Widow, the Hulk thing with him.
Yeah.
Like the sun's getting real low.
Yeah. Like,
and then
you got to chill the fuck out, dude. And then he ruins yet another outfit because there's just spike holes out throughout his shirt.
I'm glad that they verify that though, that like, yes, he ruins A-frames every time he does. That's why he doesn't wear shirts with sleeves because
he would ruin sleeves on everything. Yep.
And so the bullies run away from that situation, but they like run into Gambit
because they're trying to go sell him out to Principal Kelly.
I guess that was part of the tension of Evan not being able to pull the spikes back in, is that if they told on him and then the principal could see it, then because
that dude is just sitting from his window with binoculars right now, just looking for all the ex kids.
Yeah. So then the kids, before they can get to Principal Kelly, like physically run into Gambit. Gambit,
as an adult at the school,
threatens the children.
Yeah. he grabs a pencil and blows it up and scares the shit out of them.
Yeah. Doesn't he like stick it in a tree to blow up part of a tree? And he's like, yeah, just don't fuck with mutants, okay?
Yeah.
And once again, these kids don't know what he can do. Is like, is he omnipotent? They don't know. Like, they're gonna find out.
I mean, it's kind of like the whole thing of like, snitches get stitches, I think. Because if he found out that Spike got in trouble, who are you going to assume was the one who did it? MAGA bully. Who's literally wearing a shirt with a Captain America star on the front of it.
Yeah, right. I remember Granny Pottymouth. She sent me this thing about all the different fandoms and like someone, kind of explaining they all have to do with some marginalized group. She's like, how true are all these? I was like, I can only comment on a few of these, but like, it's like, yes, so many people like misuse the Punisher logo. A lot of people don't understand what the X-Men are about. Like, I showed her a picture of the Friends of Humanity from the X-Men trailer, and she was like, I've never seen X-Men, and even I know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, Captain America's first issue was literally punching Hitler across the face. Yeah. So, who knew?
I told her that too. I was like, and she knows Scott Nicewander. I was like, Scott did a whole video on. Oh yeah, that was one of the first ones you had to help him sponsor. Where he's punching. It's like, can we not have Nazis?
Can we not say times in the sponsored content piece? No? Okay, I'll let the brand know.
Yeah. So then Rogue bumps into Gambit because she's presumably running after the bullies.
Yep.
And then there's like this it wasn't as tense as I thought it was going to be, but another like kind of awkward run in between those two because everyone outside the show knows their history. Yeah. So she's like, you again. And you can't quite tell what that interaction is for him. You can tell she's disgusted. You can't tell what he's kind of like. Is that why he was hanging outside the school?
But is she actually disgusted, or is it like I'm putting on a front that I'm disgusted?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
It's really hard to read after that first interaction that they had at the fight.
That was the weird one. That was the super awkward one. It was like,
yeah. Are you guys going to fuck or fight right now? Because it's a very thin line.
And so he just kind of walks away. There's very uneventful. He turns around and walks away.
So at that point, Kitty walks up, recognizes Gambit, and Rogue is like, yeah, we should follow just to be safe. Like, she kind of like Nancy Drews it a little bit.
Okay, yeah. Nancy Drew is a reference I haven't heard in a while. And then back at the Brotherhood house, Blob is doing that, like, once again, they go back and forth between like Looney Tunes and kind of realistic. He's like doing the Looney Tunes thing where he's like shoving all the shit into the closet and then the door's bending and he like is able to like displace physics, shove it into the closet.
Right.
He's like, this will be fine unless something happens. And then Lance walks in and makes something happen. He's having like a temper tantrum and makes everything quake. And of course, everything avalanches out of the closet.
Right.
And Blob's like, oh, shucks. And then Lance is like, we got to get out of here before someone shows up. And they're like, who is it? And then that's when like the charge card like gently floats down. He's like, oh, that guy.
And I love that the charge has different levels of charge to it. Like he could overpower it because that card blowing up was way bigger than a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. And that house is done now.
The house is so fucked. And then he jumps through a window to get inside.
Yeah, he starts a fight. The highlight of that was that he traps Toad and it was like a rug, like wraps him up.
It was like a rug or like a curtain and yeah.
And then he charges. I don't know for sure, but it looked like he charged the rug and Toad.
If you go by comic book logic, he can't do anything organic.
I don't even know anymore because like Mystique is turning into hawks and shit. Like,
maybe he's covered in such a layer of dirt that it's the dirt layer on top of Toad that was charged.
There you go. That's the headcanon.
Yeah. If it's been a month since his shower, he can't. It's like literally a layer of sludge on top of him. I'm gonna go with that. Go. Yeah.
See, sometimes trash holds things together.
Like Toad's body.
Yeah. Or that house. Maybe that's the headcanon, is all that garbage is holding that house structure together.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, either you're going to listen to me talk or I'm going to presumably explode, do what
he threatens to murder Toad. Like, he's like, this is not Thieves Guild. This is Assassin's Guild shit.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, we'll listen. But then he still doesn't discharge Toad. And Toad's like, hey, so can we disarm real quick? And yeah, they talk and they're like, Magneto wants to recruit you to rescue a mutant. And they're like, which mutant? And they're like, Pietro.
Well, it's not just recruit you. It's you have a chance to prove yourselves.
Yeah. Again, I guess, because this happened first season.
Well, Toad has always failed. Toad has never passed the test. But it's also like, yeah, they recruited them and they proved themselves, and then they still failed. Like, the big fight, so.
Then we kind of like pan outside. Rogue and Kitty have caught up. I don't think they see what happened inside. But they see the Brotherhood guys like leaving, and so they go to follow him. And there's this crazy sequence of Kitty phasing her and Rogue through a set of box trucks and like the trunk of an old person's car.
I started like writing down names of companies. They don't have any meaning.
Like one of them
was like Bulldog Trucking Company, Stott. STOTT, the trunk of the old people's car, and then into a meat truck.
Yeah, so it was random, but also it was exciting, but like once again a little bit of anxiety inducing because that they're gonna be fine, but like that visceral response in you is like, Kitty's gonna sneeze and Rogue's gonna lose an arm.
Yeah, so she's like half in phase, half out of phase as she's doing stuff too, because it's like if Rogue is still going through the wall, you have to make sure she's phased, otherwise your feet are gonna go through the floor of the truck. The physics of evolution, Kitty, are just killing me.
I love I think it was the first box truck they were in. Kitty phases her head through to the front cab so she can see where the Jeep is going.
Right.
And the driver briefly sees her, but they made sure to put like a little alien bobblehead in front so that this is like a conspiracy theorist. So even like, not that Kitty knew that, but even if this woman said something, it would have been like she's insane or whatever. Right. Like even though this world already knows about mutants, but this whole sequence was crazy, and going through all the vehicles and stuff. They do find Lance's Jeep, but he's already like abandoned it. And
you do get a little bit of a indication of time change because it started to get darker out too.
We do see like a little bit of ways from it. The Lance and the rest of the Brotherhood are like ready to jump the escort caravan that is presumably holding Pietro. That's very similar to the caravan that had Magneto in the Pride of the X-Men pilot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
the only real difference to it is there was not somebody who was like in the cell car with Pietro, but the rest was very similar.
Like chewing a cigar, like you'll never get me.
That's not how it went in that either, Rod.
That's how it was in my head. So he quakes the cliff, I guess, because once again they have to drive on the side of a mountain, and attacks the caravan. It disarms most of the vehicles. The tank that Pietro's in pretty much stays intact. It doesn't really mess that up yet.
I wouldn't call it a tank. I think it's a little more of just like an armored vehicle. It's almost like an armored truck. What you'd put a high-powered prisoner in scenario.
Yeah, and they wanted to make sure that he could have a view, so they put a window in it too.
Yeah, and they don't lock him up really. They just he could wander around in there.
They want him to wear himself out.
Yeah,
and so the rest of the guys kind of take on various attack stances, but Blob I think goes to specifically where Pietro is. To bust him out, but since he's kind of dumb, he's doing more harm. He's doing less breaking out, more like pushing it over the cliff.
I will say, of all the times we've seen Toad really suck, He's actually super effective against the military guys here.
Yeah, because he's kind of just ricocheting off everybody.
Yeah, like right? I mean, they also specified to use tasers and not guns specifically, but they're going for it and they're just taking people out.
Yeah, and then Rogue and Kitty kind of intervene and specifically save one of the soldiers, Major Kyle.
Major Kyle, called out by name, Major Kyle.
And they make sure that, like, not that Rogue and Kitty do, but like the show itself makes sure that we know that it was clear to him who they were versus the Brotherhood. And then Rogue just kind of like wanders off and absorbs Lance, which is good. She's like, and it wasn't, I don't feel like it was even to really get his powers. It was just to like shut him down.
Yeah, I think this version of Rogue is less about how do I use your power myself as much as like how do I stop you scenario.
Yeah, and then that's
like she's a defensive Rogue as opposed to offensive.
Yeah, and then that's when Blob has fucked with the vehicle enough that it starts falling off the cliff with Pietro in it.
And the thing he's holding on to is not secured to the vehicle. It just pops off.
Yeah, it was just like, I don't know if the turret is the right. It was some random like extension piece or something.
Yeah.
And Kitty actually phases in and
dives over the cliff and snags him. Mm-hmm. And then also as they like phase back out of it is able to get a grip on the side of that cliff too.
Yeah, it's wild. But then Pietro just like fucks off immediately.
Okay, I had to replay the audio 3 times with what he said. Just about muffed that slowpoke.
I heard the slowpoke part. I didn't hear the muffed it.
I do not remember muffed it ever being afraid.
I can't tell if I did or I'm rewriting that because it makes sense. Like it doesn't sound weird to me when it says it. I think maybe I'm thinking of miffed.
But miffed is like being pissed off.
Yeah. So muffed. I don't know, dude. I've actually heard that.
I was just like, wait, what did he say? And then I replayed it. I was like, I still don't understand it. And it's one of the times where I turned on captions of like, what am I hearing right now? Because like we talked about, I am 90% sure that they up the tempo of his speech for the character.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we got to add that to like Hood for evolution urban dictionary.
Right. But then he is able to run off.
Wanda watches the whole thing. We find out that she's been like observing this whole situation and is like, well, yeah, plan B, I guess. So she's going to try again later. I
love that there's zero indication that her teammates I mean, granted, she's only been on a team with them for like 2 full fights at this point. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, whatever, I don't really care about them.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't going to like stop Pietro from getting tossed over the cliff. She was actually probably hoping for it.
Yeah, because she still feels very betrayed by him, especially because he saved Magneto when she was trying to, off him. But then Rogue does use Lance's powers and quakes like the Brotherhood away, but they end up getting away. Yeah,
they're able to have enough distance between that she's not able to get them. And also is like, oh cool, you're destroying the road that's going back to the town that you need to get to. Kitty's like, yeah, let him go. He's already too far gone. And then she's mad about Pietro, and she says the phrase, which looking back in hindsight, I probably didn't mean what it means now, but she goes, I'll slow poke him.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And I was like, okay, we got it, Kitty.
Like you said, there's a fine line of fuck or fight, right?
And obviously, Pietro's got to be into some interesting shit if Kitty thinks that that's a possibility. But they get interrupted when all of the army guys are guns drawn on them.
Yeah, they're like, we got to get them because they're probably disoriented and they're like, they just see her using earthquake powers and they know that's what's been happening. We got to get them. And that's when Major Kyle comes back out.
Major Kyle.
He's like, nope, she's one of the good ones. He's like, how do you know? It's like, I saw it myself,
Right.
And he had an interesting, like, nice little dialogue. It wasn't just that his life got saved. He's like, no, we're also peacekeepers. Like, even, and he didn't say this, but the impression we get from these characters is there are people in this universe that are well-meaning but still doing the wrong thing. So even though, like, maybe actually them having Pietro captive is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But they don't know the difference. And
well, at that point, they are just following orders. It's when there's a situation with a judgment call like this of like, oh, do we shoot the teenage girls with a taser or not?
And to your point about them like destroying the road back, he's like, well, we'd offer you a ride except we don't have any vehicles.
Yeah, we're out of cars right now.
Yeah. And also there's no road, so
yeah,
have to figure that out. And storm, I guess they radio storm. Is that what they do?
Kitty's like, no, we're gonna walk and we're gonna call Scott. Like she literally is like, because that's one of the things. Like earlier, she's like, should we call Scott? And Rogue's like, no, let's go. Fuck it.
Yeah. Back at the Brotherhood house, Gambit yells at them for failing.
For being
Again.
losers, which one would imagine would happen when you hire losers. They would be losers.
Was it this point or earlier that they said, like, that's what we do, we're losers, X-Men are winners?
Yeah, that was
They
right
said
there.
they said it at some point.
Yeah.
And they were, and the
But-
Gambit's like,
Two quick references on screen at that point. There was a bucket that was the wrong colors, but it was definitely a KFC bucket.
oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
For
And then
like,
Blob was
probably.
reading a comic book, and it literally looked like Mystique because it was a blue person with red hair.
I noticed that too, and that's what I was wondering. Was that supposed to be like a comic in universe, kind of like how? Didn't Logan have like X-Men comics in it?
Yes,
like a reference to that.
but different reasons, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was one of the wikis actually said that it was like referencing a scene from X-Men 92, but I couldn't identify what the scene was, so who knows.
Yeah, I don't think.
But it definitely was a blue mutant with some form of power and red hair is what it looked like to me.
And so Gambit's like, well, I'm here to offer you new leadership, and they're like, who's gonna lead us? And then enter Pietro.
Well, the best part is Gambit's like, not me. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, I don't want this shit show.
Yeah, I'm just a lackey that's being blackmailed, probably.
I don't know. I feel like he's the one who's like probably kind of in on it. I'm sorry.
Or he's just getting paid.
Yeah, I can't say the one because, Pyro obviously doesn't give a shit. And then Sabretooth is like, yeah, let's kill Wolverine.
Yeah.
So,
And then back at the X Mansion, Kitty and Rogue are kind of just, I don't know, accepting their fate.
yeah, they're
Just
owning up to it.
They're fessing up to Scott and Xavier about what they did. But to your point, like, they're kind of like, well, it was dangerous, but, you did the right thing.
Yeah. Scott was like, it was kind of like a lame execution, but the motives weren't, so it's okay kind of scenario.
It's like, except you're still going to have to go to detention Saturday for skipping sixth period, which was something that Kitty was legitimately worried about earlier in the episode.
Right.
It was funny because that's a very like of the time ending, because it was like you're gonna have to go to detention for skipping sixth period. Full House music, and
Right.
then pan out, and Xavier's like doing that creepy smile.
Well, because he also makes the quick comment of like, sometimes you can't address every single problem. So it's almost like the, pick your battles scenario.
That's how it ended. We learned that Kitty and Rogue got detention, but not for all the destruction, for skipping one class.
Yep. I don't know what that word says, so we're just going to assume that's what it is. Yeah. Happy ending.
Yeah, I just had like, it was a slow zoom out with like weirdly sentimental music for what was just said. It feels like one of those episodes of Family Matters where they all learn to accept Steve Urkel one more time. You're like, oh, Steve.
The one person who should not have been accepted in that show is the dude who is scamming on your daughter, who constantly says no and cannot take no for an answer.
Yeah, and then genetically changes himself.
Yeah, that show got
well,
weird.
Yeah, well, remember
Because that was
show,
in universe with other shows on TGIF.
Yeah, Perfect Strangers, because the mom worked with cousin Larry, I think.
Yeah.
Right, and also Family Matters was the one where the little sister went upstairs one day and then
Never came back. They kept cousin Richie, but they did not keep the young daughter.
Yeah. Anyway, any other thoughts?
No, I do agree with what you said about a month ago, that had our timing worked out, that we got to like the end of season 2 with the cliffhanger, it would have been a more appropriate time for it. But I also didn't want us to have like 4 weeks of show without show as we await 97 to debut. Literally 2 days from when this episode goes live to feeds.
So now you're going to have to stay in suspense for 9 or 10 weeks of what happens after Rogue and Kitty get detention.
Or they can watch the episode. They don't have to wait for us to watch the episode. They might want to do a refresher, but they don't need to wait for us for that. So
No, you're locked out of your Disney Plus account. I think Disney Plus is actually doing that on March 14th or something.
Oh, really?
They're Xing out the shared accounts, even though they allow 8 people to be on an account, or supposedly.
Okay.
It also times with them releasing Taylor Swift's concert film, so I feel like that's not a coincidence.
Oh, yeah. There was an agreement that popped up in there. Well, speaking of accounts being like locked out and stuff like that, during the Facebook outage that happened the day of this recording, Rod got a prompt if he wanted to log into my account, which I was not expecting.
Yeah, that was weird. I was able to figure out how to take it off of there.
Right.
I don't know how that was on there.
It was probably because of having a shared account for the podcast Facebook.
That's what I kind of assumed, but it was just weird that it would like.
It's not a good thing, I'll say that.
And he did it for Messenger too. I had to take it off of Messenger.
Weird.
But either way, like, Yeah. Anyway, it was pretty odd.
And then the funny thing of all of it, I never got logged out or anything. So like I see all these like, yeah, everybody's posting about it and like on like Twitter and everything. And I was like, everything works for me.
I think this was the first time there was a Facebook or Instagram outage where I just happened to be online at that time.
Right.
And it was another by chance thing because it was pretty early, but I just had happened to wake up and I don't know, it was one of those things where like, well, I can't go back to sleep in 2 seconds. So I'm just going to roll over and see what notifications I have. And I was reading some comments that a bunch of people left on one of my posts, and then I got logged out in the middle of reading it. I was like, that's odd. It let me log back in like the second time, but then when it bumped me out that time, that's when it showed both the accounts. And then I was like, this is weird. And then it just started only loading certain things. I was like, oh, this is so creepy. And then it kept telling me like passwords were wrong, and I was like, I'm getting hacked. Like, this is what's happening right now.
Right, because normally that's what it would feel like if you find out it's only you. And then Elon Musk is like literally licking his chops because they're coming back to my platform. And it's like they're coming back to your platform to see if the other one is down, not because they like your platform.
I thought I saw something about there being like some sort of outage for almost every platform today.
Well, it was.
I didn't experience it, but
it was all things Meta were the outage.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, definitely because Instagram did the same thing for me because I had some notifications there too. I wasn't like actively in Instagram when it went down, but
right.
like it did what you showed me where like it wouldn't load more stuff. But there was a few people showing screenshots of down detectors showing like YouTube and Twitter and stuff were all down for a large number of people at the same time. I don't know. I didn't personally experience it, so I don't know. Anyway, that was funny, and it was a relatively short outage. I want to say it was like an hour or two max.
Right. Yeah. By the time I started my workday, it was already back up. So
yeah, that's right. When I got the text from you, I was like, "Well, I think we're back," because I was literally in my middle of my workout, and my phone just went insane all at once, like rapid fired that notification sound.
Oh, yeah. I remember like when you got locked out of our Instagram posting and we had 35 things go live at once.
All with the Lee Waltz.
I mean, yeah, to cap up this episode, we literally had to message the Lee Waltz and be like, we're sorry for the 35 notifications you're going to hit because everything is going live at once right now on the Instagram from Rod. So,
and this was what was great about how Meta works. And I'm not afraid to put them on blast here because they don't help me. I was actually at VidCon when all this went down and walked over to the Meta Lounge where they had a Meta help desk with the sign over it that said "Ask us anything." And I brought them my device, and I was like, "Why?" At that point, nothing had posted; it was all in limbo, and I was like, "What is happening here?" And no one knew. And I think you even said then, "It's like, well, technically, they only advertised "Ask us anything." They didn't say that they would answer anything.
Yeah, they didn't say we could solve anything.
And then they tried to offer me like a T-shirt and a sticker. I'm like, "No, I want this fixed."
I don't see a better way that we can wrap up this episode as we prepare for 97.
Yeah, this actual season for us. So next week, you will join with us to experience the continuation of a 30-year-old series, to find out what happened to the X-Men a couple years after we left them last time.
We get the origin of Storm's hair a week later in comic book form, which we already spoiled some of the visuals for, which is fine.
And yeah, I'm excited. I don't know. It's gonna be a good time, and excited to talk about it too. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff, but join us next week for that. We're finally doing it, and thanks for sticking in here with us.
Rod's gonna cry, guys, just so you know.
So yeah, next week, X-Men 97, finally, unless they push it again.
I will drive to your house and slap you if that happens.
But then we can carpool to Burbank to Disney.
Yes, great.
To yell at them. Thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them in the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on the podcast app you're choosing. You can find us on the newly revamped Apple Podcast if you did the 17.4 update, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, and CastBox.
It looks the same.
It is the largest, smallest update.
I was going to say, I was literally playing podcasts earlier and I saw no difference.